Split 2 of the Drone Champions League for 2023. I'm Matt Andrews. This is Race Day 2, where we return to Reutte in Austria with our 10 fantastic teams and our second half of this year's virtual season. Coming up today, 2 more matchups for you. The first sign of SDT Perpetuumcoin from Spain for Split 2. It's Blessed, Silvio, Danube and Shrimpy Boy to get this season started. They're up against Cyclone Racing, one of the new teams for 2023. They're bringing in the Ice Cheetah, their new pilot Fluorescent, J-Box and Zion. Second match we'll show you today features the American team of Quad Force 1. Some changes here, AK Drones, Propsicle and Leviathan, but joining them it's Maverick. Their opponents, all the way from China, the China Dragons, and an unchanged roster. They didn't take any new pilots in the mid-season break, so it's Chryson, Creator Gamer, Clone Number 1, and Ion. Cyclone find themselves on top of the leaderboard, with SDT having had a closer match on race day 1, and it was Quad Force 1 on the other side of that, who are taking on China Dragons. These teams of 4 will be featuring across 3 matches each. There'll be a 2v2 and then another 2v2, followed by everybody fighting in their big heats respectively. You get 4 points in a race if you're the winner for it, then 3, then 2 and then 1, which means you can get 10 points in a big heat. And when the matchup is finished, the winning team will get 3 points towards their season tally, 1 if it's a draw. Nobody wants to come away with nothing. Later on, at the end of Split 2, in a few months' time, we'll be bringing you the Grand Finals. 18 races per team will whittle them down to the top 6 who'll go to the finals. The same kind of elimination battle as we had at the end of Split 1. 2 teams will start in the elimination zone, the ones who were 5th and 6th after the race days are over, and then we'll battle through to see who's the Split 2 champion before the Super Finals at the end of the year. Where does Race Day 2 take place? Well, Reutte in Austria, as I mentioned, on a new track called Market Town. There's the cage. In and a split S on the right-hand side, and then a split S on the left-hand side. Weave around, go through and up over the top for a 2-story split S on the way out. Confusing, isn't it? Let's find a little simpler part. Around the tunnel, through this block trade gate, and then back in through the second one. Around the Foxeer Tower to the far side of this DCL gate. Then a little bit of slaloms and hurdles. There's a bit of slalom, there's a bit of a hurdle, here's a bit more of a slalom, there's a hurdle coming, around the outside of the walls, and then attack the castle again. So SDT Perpetuumcoin against Cyclone Racing will kick off Race Day 2, Silvio and Blessed against Zion and the Ice Cheetah. So Spain drone team, SDT Perpetuumcoin, they're in green, and Cyclone Racing are in the purple. And the cage, not a problem for anybody. SDT Silvio is the one who's in the lead after that. Everybody within half a second of him, though. There's the long way down to the DCL gate. Now we'll go through the courtyard with the slaloms and the hurdles before we head outside of the castle and along the walls. 0.8 of a second between Silvio and his teammate, and the 2 pilots from Cyclone are in between them. We're on board with Zion, who is threading this cage with no problems at all. He's clearly got that dialed in, and you only get half an hour's practice before race day to learn the track. So how he's figured it out, let alone flown it that quickly, well, I've said it many, many times how impressed I am by our World Championship contenders. Zion still 0.4 of a second behind the leader, who's Silvio, on the start of lap number 3. They're all into the cage. Out comes Silvio. Zion 0.8 behind him. The Ice Cheetah, his teammate, a little bit further behind there. So Silvio's view of the beautiful Reutte night sky looks like this. All glowing somewhat in his opposition's colours. Now he comes up to the cage for his 4th go at that. So you go around the left-hand side, in the top and out of the bottom, then up and over the whole thing and come out through the bottom of it. It's hard to keep up with, I know. Silvio's route through the block trade gates, no problem at all. Around the Foxeer Tower is Zion, who's trying to gain on him, but in fact has lost a little bit more time. He's a second behind Silvio. As you can see, he's not leaving much room to spare. How will he go on his 5th attempt of the cage? Trying to make it as tight as possible. Here's the exit part, up and then out through the bottom, and he comes out having lost a 10th or so. Silvio knows how to fly Reutte. They've never played this track before, but they do know this setting. Reutte has been in the DCL since we started there with our real-life races back in 2016. These castle ruins were the showcase for our first ever event, which was an individuals event before we turned to a team format. Now we've raced it virtually a few years. Silvio is finding his way around this track in the Reutte surroundings very, very well. Zion is not getting any further behind him, but the gap is too big to be in with a shout of trying to beat him at the finish. Silvio's around the walls and heading to the end now. First win is Spain's.
Nice.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Split. Kept Silvio at bay. Equal.
Tie.
Equal. Yeah.
They're saying equal because each team picked up 5 points out of that. Silvio getting the 4 and his teammate just getting the 1. Take a look at Silvio's flying here. Cage is so complicated. Looks like he's been flying it all his life. Zion's route in. Nice. Up and over on the left-hand side. Out of the back to the top. And then dive in and out the back again. Silvio turns nicely there around the outside of the castle walls. Finish gate, not a problem. A little bit of adjustment needed for Zion. But second and third for Cyclone. They're very happy with that. So let's see what happens with Shrimpy Boy and Danube for SDT against J-Box and Fluorescent on his debut in the DCL. Welcome, Fluorescent. That's Johnny Exner racing for Cyclone. And in the lead from the start, J-Box was an incredible performer for Cyclone in Split 1 earlier this year. He's got Fluorescent in front of him. Right, through the DCL gate with the 2 SDT pilots behind the 2 Cyclone pilots at the moment. Early in the race, let's go hurdling here and around the castle walls on board with Danube, who's been the captain of SDT for many years and a phenomenal pilot. Been the #1 pilot for SDT for many, many seasons. In Split 1 of 2023, he was outscored by Silvio, but still a huge performer for his team. Right now, Shrimpy Boy is in front of him, and Cyclone's 2 pilots are in front of that one. Danube is chucking everything he's got and just getting caught on the turn on the outside of the castle walls, so he's lost a bit of time there. J-Box has managed to get in front of Fluorescent, and then it's Shrimpy Boy and Danube, but this could be a big 7 points to 3 take for Cyclone if it turns out like this. Fluorescent 4 tenths behind J-Box, and Shrimpy Boy a little bit further behind Fluorescent as we're on board with him attacking that corner. That's the one that Danube tripped up on earlier. Shrimpy Boy wasn't giving it much room to spare. Oh, and he's got caught on the side of the cage, the right-hand part of that, which has lost him about a second and a bit. So J-Box is now 7 tenths ahead of Fluorescent, who were watching weave through the 2 block trade gates around the Foxeer Tower to the far side of the DCL gate and into this open courtyard section. Fluorescent attacking very nicely there, but he hasn't managed to gain on J-Box. In fact, he's lost about a tenth. Into the cage, almost looked like a little bit of adjustment there, like he just needed to fix it as he was going, so it wasn't the most fluid we've seen people through there, but this is still a brilliant showing by Fluorescent on his first run in the DCL. He's a second behind J-Box, who is extremely quick, but he's ahead of both of their opponents. Over the courtyard he flies, and he's lost a little bit more time. J-Box is zooming around in the front. Big pre-turn from him into the cage. Almost thought maybe he would cut it a little bit too finely. Yeah, the rhythm's not there. J-Box has just lost his lead, but it's to his teammate Fluorescent. And in fact, J-Box is in all kinds of problems at the back of it. Behind Fluorescent now, trying to get out of the cage and get on with it. He's 1.5 seconds behind Fluorescent, but SDT, importantly, are still behind both of them. Fluorescent gets caught on that turn that cost Danube some time earlier. Fluorescent's winning it.
Close one. I almost had a full crash there.
Oh, damn it, sorry. Sheesh.
Shrimpy Boy is disappointed with himself, but a third place was a decent fight from him. But Fluorescent, on his debut, gets his first win in the DCL. Here's Danube heading to that corner, just a little bit high. He's getting clipped on that, but it cost a few people some time during that race. And Danube also getting stuck there at the top of the cage. Shrimpy Boy coming in, that's a good approach, but the first exit, not tight enough for him. Fluorescent weaving and lighting up Reutte until he got caught on that outcrop as well. But that was at his finish. Congratulations, Fluorescent. 1 point in the DCL already. How do they follow it up in the Big Heat? 12 points to 8 in the favour of Cyclone Racing. Into the cage we go. A quarter of a second between all 8 of the pilots from their reactions out of the block, and everybody is out with no harm done. It's the Ice Cheetah who's in 8th place, who's another very strong pilot for Cyclone. And it's all stripes. Silvio and then J-Box, and then the rest of the teams will try and sort themselves out from there. J-Box with Silvio just on the outside of him. Meaning J-Box takes a slightly different route into the cage. Had to roll it to recover it. Just a little bit of a twitch there, but it's still pretty quick, although he's lost 0.2 of a second on Silvio. And look at the drone zipping around Reutte, lighting it up in the beautiful green and purple. Silvio in the lead as they come into the courtyard. Silvio, then J-Box, and then Danube. That deadly pairing for SDT are in first and third. J-Box splitting them, Zion just behind, and then Fluorescent, who would love to follow up that brilliant performance just now with another one. Silvio still ahead of J-Box, but J-Box is a lot closer to him. Diving down towards the courtyard. Silvio and J-Box, 0.02 of a second between them at that moment. And now into the courtyard with Fluorescent moving up into third past Danube. Halfway stage of the race. We just begin lap number 4. J-Box twitching. It doesn't look very rhythmical or very fluid, but this time he's making it work. He crashed on the last race when the cage just got a little bit undone for him, but he's done it well here, and he's 0.1 of a second ahead of Silvio for now. Silvio is trying to get him on the above route as they start to make their way around the courtyard. Silvio just a little bit higher than him, which we've seen Silvio be in previous races too. But he finds himself a lap later on the start of lap number 5, 0.1 of a second behind J-Box. And Fluorescent is in third, followed by the rest of Cyclone. So they're in now second, third and fourth as Silvio is attacking and getting past J-Box and starting to pull away from him. He heads towards the courtyard. He's high on the pylon and hit it. And that's given the lead back to J-Box just as he took it from him. Silvio's now 0.7 behind, and he's got Zion looming all around the back of him, wanting to get second place. Remember, it's 4 points, then 3, 2, and 1 for the top 4 positions. Silvio's trying to steal some points from Cyclone. They'd love to steal them the other way. Silvio, 0.3 behind J-Box. He'd love to make it 4 points instead of the 3 he's currently in, because the rest of his team are far behind the other scoring positions. Final climb, and it is J-Box who gets it.
Nice.
We got it. Let's go, dude.
Oh, that was so close, please.
The last time these two teams met was actually in the Split 1 finals when Cyclone knocked SDT out. And they've beaten them again here today, thanks in part to their new pilot Fluorescent, and also to the battles from J-Box. Silvio getting caught on that pylon in the Big Heat. Unfortunately for him, he just lost out on the win to this pilot, J-Box, on his final approach to the finish gate. And that secured the win for Cyclone Racing, who were already at the top of our leaderboard after race day 1. A close match though, Silvio getting a win, Fluorescent on his debut getting a win, and then J-Box winning the Big Heat. 19 points to 11. Will Quad Force 1 and China Dragons be as close? We're going to kick it off with Propsicle and Maverick against Chryson and Ion. So the same track, America versus China here. Quad Force 1 from America in the dark blue, China Dragons in the orange, and it is Chryson at the front and Ion 0.6 of a second behind at the back. In between, Propsicle, the captain, Silas Aaron, who's been leading Quad Force 1 for many years, and Maverick is with the team. Under the hurdles goes Chryson. It's striped again, Propsicle in second, then Ion as Maverick has slipped and gone to the back. Chryson comes out of the cube just behind Propsicle. Chryson was a little bit wobbly during it, but 0.8 of a second is almost nothing when it comes to drone racing. There's Chryson finding his way down to the courtyard, still so close to Propsicle all the time. Too close to the pylon in the slalom there. And just like that, Chryson drops down to third. So Ion is leading the charge for China Dragons, but he's 1.5 seconds behind Propsicle. And Propsicle, such a polished performer, so confident. Particularly this year, he seems to have extra fire in the belly. He's right where he wants to be, out in front, knowing that he's got a big lead, and the pressure is on everybody to catch him. Chryson around the castle walls, about to start lap number 4. Big pre-turn into the cage, working very nicely for him. The split S is no problem there at all. This is quick, that is fast work through the cage. Propsicle still over a second out in front. Chryson's gained a bit on him thanks to that cage flying. Propsicle still with a massive lead as he makes his way down to the courtyard. Chryson's got back in front of Ion, who's lost more time. Let's take a look at our leader into the cage. How well does he go? kind of smoother but not quite as fast is my sort of impression of that. It's worked, but he's lost quite a few tenths of time to Chryson, who's gained on him loads now. If Propsicle takes the cage like that on the final lap coming up, and Chryson can blast through it as we saw him doing, then we might have a really close finish coming up. Let's find out as we go to lap number 6 now. Chryson sees Propsicle in front of him and attacks and gains time all the time. And Propsicle looked like he went a little bit wide on the final part of it, which is why they're less than a tenth of a second between them. We can see it coming now through the block trade pair and around the Foxeer Tower, and it's 1/10 down to 0.003 of a second. Chryson or Propsicle for the win here. Around the poles, around the castle wall, and Propsicle maybe just out in front. Chryson on the inside!
Sit down, kid, sit down. Sit. Come on.
Hast richtig geil aufgeholt. Hast richtig geil aufgeholt.
Chryson just missed out. Propsicle gets the win. And there was less than 0.2 of a second between them. Let's have a look back at Chryson first. He was right in contention on the second lap and then hit that part of the slalom. That lost him a lot of time, but just brilliant flying pulled him back into contention. Here's his final cube, just behind Propsicle, but comes out of it much quicker. And then the race along the castle walls was coming up here. So close between them, he's on the inside, but Propsicle just beats him out. Let's take a look at it from Propsicle's view. As he's coming along the castle walls, you can see Chryson moves over on the inside, but Propsicle gets that win. What can Leviathan and AK Drones do when they're racing against Clone number 1 and Creator Gamer? To the cube. Looking at it side on, you can see the roots as they now spiral their way up to the top. But Creator Gamer went up and kept going up. He's now 2 seconds behind as he didn't come down through the cube, and AK Drones is all over the floor. Bouncing off the rocks of Reutte sends him completely to the back. So Leviathan, his teammate, is the one leading now. Quad Force 1 out in first and fourth. Clone number 1 and Creator Gamer between them early in this race, but in this kind of a position, you get 5 points each at the end, just like they did after the first race. Let's see if either team can get a bit more of an advantage out of this one. Clone number 1, James Govey from the UK, chasing after Levi Johnson at the moment. 0.3 of a second between them. And around the castle walls to the start of lap number 3. Into the cage we go again. Both of them split S the right-hand side and the left-hand side, and then weave their way up and down through the middle. And Creator Gamer is in the cube as they're leaving it. 1 and 2 of the block trade gates. No problem for Clone number 1, who was just briefly in the lead, but Levi has just slipped past him again. There he is. So close between them. Really strong pilots from both teams, and that lap disappears behind them. Cage flying again. Now they'll find their way to the top and down through the middle, and Creator Gamer has lost a little bit more time, and AK Drones hasn't managed to catch him yet, so they're still in third and fourth. Clone number 1 now, 0.2 ahead of Levi, but you feel like that gap might just come and go. Let's take a look from Levi's view as he goes around the castle walls and finds himself just about 1/10 of a second behind Clone number 1. 2 more laps to go. Plenty of time. We're seeing Levi's view as he attacks the cage, tears it to pieces, comes out the other end, and Clone number 1 is still in front of him. Through block trade 1 and 2 around the Foxeer Tower, diving down different routes. Clone number 1 attacked that a little bit harder. He looked like he'd pulled away from Leviathan, but there's still barely anything between them, and there's 1 more lap to go. Into the cages, we fly. Clone number 1, Levi, swapping the lead back and forth as one takes one turn tightly and then the other one follows them. Clone number 1 lost a little bit of time there, though. We see him attacking the tunnel and the block trade pair. He's now a couple of tenths behind Leviathan, and remember, this is the final lap. There's his route down through that DCL gate, hanging on the wall. Now under the hurdles, around the slalom, and it's the castle wall. Levi's in front. Clone number 1 has crashed it.
Wow, dude, that was a battle. And you guys were trading literally the whole race.
No way.
Well said, Maverick. Clone number 1 just missed out. Leviathan gets his first win of Split 2. AK Drones almost stole third, but Creator Gamer managed to hang on to it, which means both teams get 5 points here. This is where Creator Gamer went very high at the beginning. It's because in the cage, he just clips it there and had to recover the drone. That lost him quite a lot of time. AK Drones weaving around, caught that pylon early in lap number 1 as well, which sent him scattering over the ground. Right at the end, clone number 1 in a real battle with Leviathan, but that outcrop corner claims another drone and just sent him into second. And at that point, Levi was behind clone number 1, but then when he got caught on the corner, Levi had the straight run to the points. So Big Heat, this could be very close indeed. All 4 pilots from each team, and they are 10 points all going into it. Everyone into the cage, oh, except Ion, who's just missed the entry and is coming out 2 seconds behind everybody else. Propsicle is coming out in the lead, and his teammates are all in the thick of things, with Chryson the only one splitting them, although here comes clone number 1 and Creator Gamer, and everybody is mixing it up. Very close. Mavericks at the back, then Ion in 7th. Levi now a second behind the lead, and Creator Gamer about the same. They're fighting for 6th and 5th, but the point-scoring positions, China Dragons are getting the main share of them at the moment. It's just Propsicle leading it. All the other positions are orange. AK Drones trying to do something about that with Creator Gamer. There's a good battle going on in the midfield. And in front is Propsicle, who's got Chryson very close to him. Let's take a look at Chryson as they move up to start lap number 3. He'll pre-turn again. There it is. It's very early. Oh, this part hasn't worked out at all, though. He's so confident going into the cages, but he is down in 7th after coming out of them. That's a disaster for China Dragons. That said, although Propsicle is clear out in 1st, it is then China Dragons in 2nd and 3rd. AK Drones scrapping around with Creator Gamer still for 3rd and 4th. They could come out of this with 5 points each again and tie the whole matchup. Neither team wants that. They both want to get 3 points in their 2nd race day of the season, with a clear win over the other team, and Propsicle can't do that all by himself. He's out in front. We're looking at clone number 1's view, who's barely got any vision on Propsicle, the leader, who's 2 seconds ahead of him. Clone number 1 is a whole second and some over AK Drones, though. So, clone number 1 not being challenged by anybody at the moment, and we're seeing good cage flying from him there, and there's the exit. This is Propsicle, who is comfortably ahead of him. And with only 2 laps to go, don't fancy clone number 1's chances of catching Propsicle, even if he can gain a 10th on him here and there. There's not much race left. Creator Gamer in 3rd. AK Drones in 4th. 1st and 4th for Quad Force 1 will get them 5 points, as will 2nd and 3rd for China Dragons, as has happened in both of the heats so far. These teams so evenly matched. Will they come out with 5 points all? Propsicle now through the pair of block trade gates around the Foxeer Tower. Nobody anywhere near him. He's got this so cleanly raced into the slaloms and the hurdles. It's all good. He doesn't get caught out by the outcrop. He's into the finish gate with 1.7 seconds of a lead. There's clone number 1 in 2nd. AK Drones is 3rd, and then Creator.
Nice, Ryan. Love that.
Oh my god, no. And I thought I was ahead.
Propsicle gets the win, and Quad Force 1 just managed to beat out China Dragons. So close at the start. Everyone needing to concentrate as there are drones in and out of your peripheral vision. A couple of laps later, Chryson got caught in the cages here. Propsicle, though, didn't seem to have any problems the whole race. He's in 1st lap, and he was already in the lead. And he stayed there throughout, just got further and further into the distance. Here's his view of Reutte at the end. Clone number 1 just making that final turn and sees him. And when Propsicle's finished cartwheeling on the ground, we'll say well done to Quad Force 1. But what a scrap from China Dragons. Just look at that. 5 all in the 2 single heats. Quad Force 1 coming 1st and 3rd gave them that advantage after the big heat. Elsewhere, XBlades had a good run against the wildcard team. Raiden beat Mach 1 and Haven couldn't compete again, which means they languish at the bottom of the table. At the other end, Raiden, with their excellent score from today, have just moved ahead of Cyclone, and then XBlades are in 3rd. Coming up on race day 3, SDT could put up a real scrap with Raiden Racing, then XBlades of Haven, Mach 1 China Dragons, Cyclone against Quad Force 1, and the wildcard team will take on Alpha Prop Racing. I'm Matt Andrews, we're the Drone Champions League. We'll see you in the skies.